Yes. Um, why don't I try to do something positive? Maybe I'm a little bit. Maybe I'm negative a lot. I focus too much on negative shit. I don't know. Maybe that's what causes a lot of my problems. Is my negativity. Could be. Um. Anyway, so I guess one of the things that I want to talk about to kind of just get the ball rolling on this video is when I started to wake up. I guess I would have to admit I'm not the most awake person in the world. I'm not like Mr. Red Pilled or nothing like that. I'm probably, I don't know, maybe I'm average or something, or maybe I'm less than average on the red pill scale. Um. But I have had experiences where I I became more awake, and the biggest one, the one that's like, and I've already talked about this. And again, the reason I talk about this is because like I only have 3 subscribers, so I feel okay, kind of being more open, you know, and kind of just talking about my own personal experiences and stuff. So I'll talk about like how what are some of the things that have awakened me in my life. And this one, you probably heard it a bunch of times if you watch any of my videos. Is when I quit drinking and doing drugs. Uh, that was like a big eye opener for me. Uh, I guess before I quit drinking and using, I was kind of in tune to things that it seemed like a lot of other people weren't. But I never saw it as something especially unique, you know. Uh, but like I've always been kind of anti-establishment. Um, like when I looking at like high school and shit like that, I was I was always like, whatever was fashionable and popular and trendy, I was always repelled by it. I always was like, thought it was stupid. And so then when I would make friends with people, it was always kind of people who were like that, where we all looked at what was fashionable and popular and trendy in high school, and we all thought it was stupid, and we were all there to make fun of that stuff. So, and I was always drawn to other people that kind of were like that. So my associations with people in like school were always with the people that where we all just looked at the society, because when you're in school it's a society, and we all questioned it all the time and laughed at it and mocked it. So I've always kind of had that going on for some reason. I don't know why. But anyways, but so but it was when I finally like quit drinking and using drugs. I was 27 years old, and I did it because because I had to. So I had 2 felonies in California when I decided. So basically, I was kind of driven and forced into it. I had gotten once I had gotten my second felony in California. Well, that was during the 3 strikes law. So my felonies were auto theft. One of them was called auto theft. They didn't. It wasn't. It was weird. It was almost like they didn't even have a name for the charge, and so they called it auto theft, which is not grand theft auto. It's a different. And I don't really fully understand exactly what that's about. But like I think it has to do with the fact that I wouldn't know how to steal a car to save my life, But I just happened to get caught a couple times driving a car that wasn't mine. And so I was like the second or third time they caught me doing this that they charged me with a felony. So that was one of my felonies, and then one of them was where I had broken into my mom's house and to take a shower and like make some food and stuff. Like my nobody. It was just happened to be that nobody was at my mom. I guess my mom was out of town or something. And so I checked the door, and the sliding glass door was open. So I went in, took a shower. I was homeless at the time and stuff, and made some food and did shit like this. And then I didn't know my brother had been staying at my mom's house, and he showed up. He was probably out at the bar or something partying, and he shows up at like 3:30 in the morning, and I didn't even know he was staying at my mom's house. So he shows up. I hear the door open, and I'm like, "Fuck!" And I'm panicking, so I fucking dart out the sliding glass door I came in, and he saw me. He saw like a shadowy figure just like out the sliding glass door, so he called the cops. So he like immediately went out to the front door, opened the front door, and had the phone in his hand, and he's calling the cops. And I didn't even have. I was still at the front yard, hiding in the bushes, hoping he would go inside so that I could take off. And he just stood at the front door, and he stood there the whole time until the cops showed up. And so when the cops showed up, I knew they were going to catch me because I was just hiding behind a little puny bush. And so I just come out with my hands up. I'm like, "It's me, I'm right here." And then so when they asked my mom if she wanted to press charges, and my mom said that she wanted to press charges, so that was my second felony. So by that time I had 2 felonies, and this was back during the 3 strikes. And during that 3 strikes time, it didn't matter what felony it was. It didn't matter. If you get 3 felonies, you go to prison for 25 years to life for 3 felonies. And I already had 2. Those were my 2 I described to you. So when I went to jail for that one, I didn't want to go to prison. I was afraid of prison. And then when they released me, I think I was in jail for like 3 months for that. When they released me, I was mandated to go to AA meetings and shit like this, and so I just did it because I didn't want to go to prison. And they did, they could. I was on formal probation, so they could at any time they wanted, they could drug test me, and if I showed that, if they tested my pee and I had, I could go back to jail and maybe even prison. So I didn't want to go to prison. So I just started going to meetings and started walking the line, as Johnny Cash would put it, So anyway, so I didn't by choice stop drinking and using. I did it because it was either that or I was going to go to prison. So that's what started it, right? And then so I would just go to meetings to get my court slip signed, so that when I because I was required to, check in with my I was on formal probation, so I had to check in. I had to show them that I'd been going to Narcotics Anonymous and AA meetings and stuff. And so I just did all this, and I ended up in a homeless shelter. And then I went from a homeless shelter for like a month and a half or 2 months into a homeless housing. And I just kept walking the line because I didn't want to go to prison. So, anyways, that's where it kind of started with me quitting drugs and alcohol. It's because I was forced to. And then, but what happened is that I started to kind of get used to not drinking and using, and I didn't like the meetings, and I wasn't planning on staying sober or anything like that. I was just doing it because I had to. My goal is that as soon as the smoke cleared and the probation was off my back and everybody was off my back, I could get back to living my life the way I wanted to, right? In the meantime, I'm going to these meetings, and I would just sit in the back, and I didn't, and it was all mostly a bunch of old men. And so I would just go to these meetings, and these old men would talk. But I mean, my mind was so hazy from all the, my drinking and using, it's like my mind was just a big fog from all the years of drugging and drinking and everything. So I wasn't necessarily all that receptive to what people were talking about. I was just there because I had to be. But then the thing is then slowly over a long period of time, my mind, the fog in my mind started to clear slowly over a long period of time. And then as my mind cleared, I started being able to hear what people were saying a little more. But again, I wasn't planning on staying sober or nothing. I was just doing it because I had to, It's like either that or go to prison for 25 years to life. And so I was, of course, didn't want to do that. And so anyway, so I just kept doing all this. And again, the goal is that eventually when the dust settles, then people will leave me alone. The cops, I won't be on probation anymore. And then I can just kind of live my life the way I want to, And I could smoke 2 joints in the morning and get back to all that, once all the dust settles. But it was going to take a while. It was going to take a while. I was on formal probation, I can't remember how many years. I think 3 or 4 years, some crazy shit. So it was only temporary. I was just going to be temporarily abstinent from drugs and alcohol until people left me alone. Then I could get back to just controlling it, because I was going to, that was always my goal. I was going to control all this, even though I never could. But in my mind, I knew I could. It's not my fault that I'm out of control. It's everyone else's fault that I'm out of control with my drinking and drugging. And that if people would just leave me alone, I could get a handle on it, and I could, be like everybody else, where I can just, control and enjoy my drinking and smoking weed. And it wasn't my fault that I couldn't control it. It was everyone else's. And so that was the point. And the whole goal is once all the dust settles, then I can go back to living my life. In the meantime, I had to keep going to these meetings and abstaining, right? So that's what I did. In the meantime, that's all I could do. So then months would go by, and the fog in my head slowly started to clear a little bit more each day. And as the fog cleared, I could almost listen to people, at the meetings, and it was all just a bunch of old men. That's all it was, mostly just old men. There were meetings where there were people my age and stuff, but those meetings, all those people, they're all fucking assholes and pieces of shit. So I liked the meetings where it was just all old men, because old men, they're not very threatening. They don't really care. They're not trying to steal my girlfriend. They're not trying to steal my wallet, and they're not trying to dick swing like who's the better person generally. As opposed to the meetings where people my age and younger, they're all like dick swingers. They'll steal my girlfriend or do whatever, this and that, and I didn't want to be around any of them. So I just hung out with a bunch of boring old men. But yeah, as time went on, my mind started to get a little clearer, which is something I didn't really necessarily expect to happen. And as my mind started to get clearer, I started to be able to hear things that people were saying and comprehend them, right? And so every once in a while, I might hear some old man saying something and be like, huh, that makes pretty good sense. Wow. It was rare, but it was like every once in a while I'd hear some old guy talking, and he'd be saying something, and I'd be like, yeah, all right, I got you. But again, my whole goal is just let the dust settle. Then I could get on with my life, which was my life at that time. I saw as I'm just a guy who just smokes joints, a couple joints, maybe go to the bar, drink a couple beers, catch a little buzz, but I'm going to get it all under control. Because it wasn't me that was it was everyone else's fault that I couldn't control in my drinking and using, right? So once the dust settles, I can get back to my life. Then I can get a handle on this and just move on, no problem. In the meantime, I got to keep doing this shit, and checking in with my probation and getting my slips signed for the meeting and shit. So then time went on, and my mind, the fog in my mind slowly started to dissipate more and more. And then I started like noticing weird things. I started becoming more aware, which was, again, I didn't expect it. One of the first things I started to notice is that I have a roof over my head. Even though it is this shitty homeless housing program where I'm living in this house with like 5 other guys. But I was still had a roof over my head, which I hadn't had for like 10 years prior. 10 years prior to that, I was just living outside, sleeping in alleys and everything. And so I was kind of like, it kind of piqued my curiosity. I have a roof over my head, and I was eating 3 meals a day. Again, another thing was like, this is all new to me. Because I'd been, for 10 years, I was sleeping outside in alleys and under bridges and next to dumpsters. And I wasn't eating 3 meals a day. I was eating out of dumpsters. And if I could get to a soup kitchen or something on time and everything, then I'd do that. But so I started noticing this, where I'm like, I have a roof over my head. I'm eating 3 meals a day. Strange, right? It's like, I wonder, But beyond that, beyond being aware of that, I didn't really think past that too much, and just kept going to the meetings, Every once in a while, some old guy would say something, and I'd be like, huh, that actually makes sense. Weird, whatever. But again, the whole goal the whole time is I'm just going to wait until the dust settles and get back to doing me, So this just goes on and on. Months go by, many months go by. Then I remember one time I'm walking down the street, right? Going to the store or something. Nothing, I wasn't doing anything. And I see a cop go by. And as soon as I see that cop go by, my mind is like, fuck, like I need to hide in a bush or something. So as soon as I see the cop, my mind goes fuck, and then I'm immediately looking for there's some bushes or somewhere to hide, and then I realized like weird, and then I thought about it as I kept walking. And I'm like, dude, I don't have to. Cops got nothing on me. I ain't doing shit wrong. Fuck those fucking cops, right? And so then it kind of I noticed it gave me a sense of power, like that. I don't. What are these guys gonna do to me? Fuck these pigs, right? And so then I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. Like, I don't have to worry about these fucking pigs. What are they gonna do? I ain't doing shit, right? And so when I experienced that and I acknowledged that, I'm like, that is something that I'm interested in because I don't like fucking cops, right? So then I'm like, and I keep walking down the street, fucking head high, like, fuck you, you fucking pigs. Right? So that was valuable to me. To me, I was like, that's something of value that I like that. I like that. And then wasn't much longer after that, a cop stopped me and made up some bullshit that I fit the description of someone in the neighborhood that was you know, burglarized a house or something. And I remember having no fear, and I was just like, what? And they're like, yeah, you fit the description. I'm like, it wasn't me, man. I'm not doing nothing. They're like, okay, well, because you fit the description, we're gonna have to put you in the car. And I'm like, okay, whatever. It ain't me, but whatever, man. Go ahead, do your investigation. Like, fucking, you got nothing on. So then they do all this and that, and I'm just waiting. And then they gotta let me go, and I'm just like, okay, see you later, have fun, you know. And I remember thinking again, where I'm like, dude, I have no fear of these guys. Like, fuck these guys. I don't give a fuck about the. Whereas before I did, because I was, trying to score some crack or heroin, or I was drunk in public, or this or that, and so it was always like, oh fuck, the cops, slip out the side. Whereas I didn't have that no more. And I really was very appreciative of that. I'm like, there actually are some advantages to this. I got a roof over my head. I'm eating 3 meals a day, and now I got no fear. The cops got nothing on me. Like, fucking, what the fuck? Why would they even stop me? Like, stop me, motherfucker! Stop me! So I started to notice these things as the fog continued to clear. And the prison for your mind. Prison for your mind. So I began to not be as imprisoned by I began to feel a sense of freedom where I'd never experienced this freedom before. So then I started wondering, like, how much of this has to do with me not drinking and using and going to meetings and hanging out with these boring old men that would talk all the time about, sobriety and all this shit. And so I started wondering, what is going on here? So I started doing my own little bit of investigation as to, like, what is going on? So I started kind of intentionally listening a little bit closer when I would be around all these old men at these meetings, just out of curiosity and kind of like as an acid test to try to figure out why is this going? Why am I feeling more free? And then when I go to the meetings, these old men are talking about how once they quit drinking and all this stuff, they started feeling a sense of freedom that they had never experienced before. What is going on? I started trying to maybe connect the dots a little bit. Even though I still had fog, the fog had been clearing more and more. So I started doing my own little investigation into all this. And anyways, long story short, as time went on, the fog cleared more and more, and I began to experience more freedom. And no matter how much I tried to understand it, the only thing that I could attribute this new sense of freedom I was experiencing was abstinence from drugs and alcohol, and hanging out with these boring old men who were talking about their experience. Then I started to realize, well, these old men, they've been doing this for like 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, and then they're still going to these meetings, you know? And again, these old men, they ain't trying to figure out how they can steal my girlfriend, or trying to figure out how much money I have to see if they want to hang out with me, you know, because everything is based off of superficial bullshit like that in the world, everywhere, all the time. That was another thing that kind of piqued my curiosity, is how come these guys ain't trying to steal my girlfriend? How come they're not trying to figure out how much money I have and what they can get out of me? How come? Why is it that? And then it almost seems like they kind of care about me, like, you know, because twice a week I'm going to this meeting, all these old men, and they when they see me, they say hi. They're like glad to see me. Like, why is this? Before that, nobody was glad to see me, or concerned about my freedom, if I'm free or not, So all this continued on, and I'm on probation anyways. I have to go to these meetings. If I don't, I'm putting myself at jeopardy of fucking going to prison for 25 years to life. So I really had nothing to lose. And also I was noticing, I'm eating 3 meals a day. I got a roof over my head. The cops can't fuck with me. I can walk down the street and the cops can't do or say shit to me. I don't give a fuck. They can try. They ain't gonna, So I'm just kind of processing all this, and I'm realizing my life is kind of improving. And I enjoy some of the freedoms that I'm experiencing, and that I would like more freedoms. And then, so eventually I started listening a little bit, because I wanted more of this freedom I was experiencing. That's the only reason. It wasn't because I was wanting to be a do-gooder and improve my life and be something, respectable member of society, because I'm still anti-establishment, anti-whatever. I don't believe in all this shit. But something about this is uniquely different than what I experience in the general sense of the world. Typically, people are trying to steal my girlfriend, steal my wallet, trying to figure out how can they get $1 out of me, get an extra $1 or $2 out of me, sell me some snake oil, or that's the world at large all around me. But when I'm in these meetings, it's just a bunch of old guys, and they're just like talking about how not drinking, and that there's all this other stuff too besides not drinking. And I'm like, what is this other stuff? So I start listening a little closer, and then they're talking about the 12 steps, and so I'm like, these steps, what is it with these steps? Anyways, this just continues on and on and on. Months go by. Next thing you know, a year's gone by, and I haven't drank or used for a whole year. And so then it's like, well, here's don't you want your birthday chip, your 1 year? And I'm like, okay, yeah, I guess. I mean, yeah, And I did, when I got my year, there was like a sense of the accomplishment where I'm like, that's crazy. I got a fucking whole year. I guess that is something to, there's something to be said for that, Like, I've never known anyone in my life who went a year without drinking and using. Except for these boring old guys. They've all got like 30, 40 years and shit. But what do I have in common with them? They're all kind of conservative looking, and I'd show up with my long hair, long hair and beard and all, looking like a caveman and shit. But they didn't judge me, man. They were just like, "Hey, what's up, bro?" Always the same, always the same. Never. They were never like, "Oh man, here comes this long-haired, scraggly-looking fucking piece of shit again." Never, nothing like that. It was always like, "Hey, you want a cup of coffee? Hey, here. How's it going today?" It's like, what? Somebody actually cares, is really asking me how I'm doing? Like, that's weird. I'm used to people spitting on me and yelling at me because I'm homeless on the street. So I continue this journey. Well, I'm on formal probation anyways. At this point, I got nothing to lose but to just keep, not drinking and not using. I mean, whatever. I'm stuck in this situation anyways. At this point, if I do drink or use, all it's going to do is make my life more miserable, because then when the probation officer tests my piss, I'm gonna they'll probably put me in jail for violating my probation. So I got nothing to lose. I'm like, fucking whatever, man. And then this continues to go on, and every once in a while I'd kind of look back and I'd realize that, even though my life is far from perfect, I'm looking at all this and I notice my life is gradually improving. Not like all of a sudden I'm rich and famous, but my life is like getting better. Like if I were to do a line graph, that my life is going in a positive direction gradually. So I'm like, well, I mean, for me, not someone else's interpretation of what positive is, but what's positive for me. For example, like the cops. I'm walking down the street and the cop drives by. All of a sudden I have no fear. It's like, fuck you. Because I'm not doing nothing that the cops can fuck with me about. I'm those kinds of things I really appreciate. And also, like, I can keep my long hair and fucking wear my Megadeth shirt and so they can think whatever they want, but they try to stop me. What are you gonna do? What the fuck? Yeah, go ahead, stop me. What do you got? You got nothing on me, you fucking pig. Fuck off. And that, to me, that shit's important. So then time continues to go on, and then I start noticing I've got money. Like, I've got money. I got a roof over my head. I'm eating 3 meals a day. And then say another year goes by. Well, and it's just getting better and better. So this was my experience waking up. And so eventually, I was probably a couple, 2.5, 3 years, 2.5 maybe years, I decided, well, I might as well do these steps. These old guys, they keep bugging me about the steps and all this shit. And so I got nothing to do. I live in a fucking homeless house. I got nothing to do. I might as well, I guess. So I half-assedly kind of started fucking with these steps and shit, just for whatever. And but I started feeling, because I was doing them, I started feeling like I kind of belonged more, like and that I'm doing something. I'm doing something, right? So I'm doing these steps a little bit, just like, experimenting a little bit. And so then I show it to, I'm like, well, I've been doing these. And then these old guys that have been around for 30, 40 years, they're looking at it and they're like, well, do you have a sponsor? And I'm like, no. And they're like, well, you can't do the steps by yourself. The whole idea of the steps is you do them with a sponsor. And they're like, you need to go back and start over again with a sponsor instead of just doing them by yourself. And I'm like, really? So I'm like, oh, whatever, man. So then I just put it away for a while. I keep going to meetings, whatever. But eventually I was like, okay, I guess I'm not doing nothing. I got all kinds of time. There ain't nothing going on. So found somebody who half-assed was willing to sponsor me and shit. And so then I started doing them like they told me was the right way to do them. because I had nothing to lose. I mean, I don't, and still the whole thing was that eventually all the dust is gonna settle, and then I'm gonna go back to me, because my whole identity was I smoke 2 joints in the morning. That's my identity. I smoke 2 joints in the morning. I drink a little beer in the afternoon because I'm such a cool ass motherfucker. That was my whole identity clung to, that I smoke 2 joints in the morning and I drink a couple beers, and that was my whole identity. And so as soon as the dust cleared, I was going to get back to me because I'm me, But then I slowly started to realize, well, that's a really dumb thing to cling to as my identity. And it's also not very original when you think about it. Like, that's kind of stupid. Like, everybody smokes joints. Everybody drinks. Like, how am I doing anything unique? I'm just like a sheep following everyone else. I smoke 2 joints in the... So then I started to kind of think about all this, and I'm like, yeah, at least I'm not like doing whatever everyone's doing that. Everyone's smoking weed and acting like they're so special and unique and different when it's not. Like, everybody does it. So how unique can it possibly be? Even though everybody acts and talks and thinks like it is unique, when you're not doing it and it's a couple of years have gone by and you start looking at it, you're like, everybody does that. There's nothing unique about that. But then the way they act is as though it's something so unique and they're so special because they smoke 2 joints in the morning. Well, how is that special? Everybody does that. So I started realizing, like, I'm actually doing something different than the sheep, than all these mobs of just everybody smoke 2 joints in the morning. Like, I'm not doing that. So then I'm realizing, like, those are sheep. That's just a big sheeple mentality, smoking joints in the morning and doing, and then, so then I started to kind of laugh at them. Like, what a bunch of sheep, dude. What a bunch of dumb fucking sheep, And so I started to realize that's not my identity. Why have I been clinging to this as my identity? Because Sublime, that Sublime song told me to, and the radio and all these Holly weirdos and these rock stars, they're all saying that that's unique and that's what's cool. That's the reason? Like, that's dumb. How stupid, right? So I started to kind of appreciate more and more as time went on and the fog began to clear and clear. I started to appreciate this more. And I started to realize there is a lot of freedom to this. And so then I started intentionally breaking rules and stuff. Like, I would go ride my bike downtown and on the fucking thing, even though you're not supposed to, just out of like, because I can't just be this do-gooder, because it's not me. So I want to push the boundaries of this thing with sobriety and stuff. I want to kind of push the boundaries. I can stay sober, but I can still have long hair and a beard and wear my Megadeth shirts and go kind of, rabble rouse around town and do shit that I'm maybe not supposed to do, but that is really harmless anyway. So I started making it a practice to kind of do things, to kind of rabble rouse, to keep... Because even though I'm not going to be drinking and using, I'm still going to fucking be, the guy that kind of causes waves here and there and, and shit. So I started doing that, It's like, fuck it. That's part of my little program to keep me from drinking and using. I'm going to start causing a little trouble here and there. Nothing serious, just all in good fun, nothing harmful. But which is what the point was, is I'm not causing any harm, so you want to fucking jam me up, go ahead. But I don't drink or use, so fuck you, And so I started taking this on and going on and on. So anyways, but the more and more I did this, the more I realized there's all kinds of freedom that other people don't have. In this life that I had started, this new life, And the more I lived it, the more I realized, even if the dust does settle, I think I kind of like this better, because because my mind's more clear, I can more efficiently and effectively stir up trouble and cause waves and go against the grain, even much more effectively. I can much more effectively go against the grain and challenge the status quo and all these things with a clear mind. I'm much more effective at it. And I started realizing all this as time went on, and I'm like, well, this is something that's very important to me, like to push the boundaries and go against the grain and challenge the status quo and go the opposite direction of sheeple. All these things are important to me. And I realized by all this abstaining I'd been doing for the last 2-3 years, I'm much more effective. And the more time went on, the more effective I became. And the more tactful I became at all this stuff. Going against the grain, going the opposite direction of sheeple, doing all these things, I became much more of a master. I was mastering this shit at a much more advanced level than I ever did. And my whole life had basically been that. Like I said, back in high school, it was like, whatever is cool and trendy, and that's all the stupid, look at all these sheeple everywhere. That's what high school was all about for me. Look at all these fucking sheep. So this abstinence thing, all it did was enhance what's important to me, which I didn't understand. I didn't expect that to happen. It just happened because that's what happens. So then I started harnessing the awesome power that I started harnessing this awesome new power that I had discovered and acquired, which only drove me more to look into these steps and all this stuff, because these things are important to me. You know, stirring up trouble, going against the status quo, going against the grain, rejecting sheeple mentality. I was becoming far more. I mean, like other people, I could see all these other people trying to do it, and they all sucked because they had smoked 2 joints a couple hours earlier, and so they're so stoned they don't even know which direction the sheeple are or aren't going, and they're just like, Ugh. And so I started like really having a lot of fun with it, where I'm like, look at, even these guys are dumb motherfuckers. And then the cops would continue to stop me because I look the way I do, and so I look like I'm up to something, and I'd be like, what's up? What? Go ahead. You want to check my pockets? You know. And so these things were all important to me. So then, by the time that my probation was up and I didn't have to do the slips anymore, I didn't care, because this is what I enjoyed. I was starting to get laid. I was even getting more money, man. By this time I had gotten. You know, I had gotten the FAFSA. I was going to college, babes everywhere. I was getting the FAFSA money. I had fucking gotten my own apartment, shit like this. Like, and all these things, these are all things that are important to me. So I started experiencing a whole new sense of freedom with this. And so the more freedom I experienced, the more interested I was in all this 12-step stuff and everything. And so I continued to dig deeper and deeper and go down this rabbit hole, and and all it did was improve everything. After about 4 years, I'm playing in bands, which is what I'd been wanting to do, like all my life, playing bands. And I'm playing in good bands, not shitty bands. Not poser bands, not fake bands. Like, I'm starting to play in real bands that are doing super fucking badass shit. And so then I'm like, that's a whole other avenue of opportunity that opened up. All of a sudden, like, I can play in bands. And so then for the next like 6, 7, 8 years or more, I start playing in bands as part of my sobriety program. It's like, you know, I'm gonna still fucking be me. I'm not gonna, you know. And so, you know, I'm fucking crazy, long hair, beard, fucking playing in crazy fucking bands, doing shows every other weekend at shitty bars where everybody's all drugged out on coke and fucking drunk and stuff, and I'm just totally abstinent, and then I'd be killing it at shows. That's another thing I realized. because I'm not drinking and using stuff, like I can execute these riffs like way easy. And these drunk, coked out drunk motherfuckers, man, they trip out. They're like, wow, this guy's good. And I'm just kind of shredding and stuff. But see, I can shred a lot more effectively, not all coked up and drunk and stuff. And I'm entertaining all these coked out drunk motherfuckers. Like, they're just loving it. They're like, wow, fuck yeah, you know. So then it just enhances everything even more, and fucking, so then I'm playing more shows. Then I'm in 2 bands. Now I'm in 3 bands, and we're fucking just shredding. I'm playing more shows every weekend. We're playing shows, and people are fucking tripping the fuck out, and we're playing with other killer bands. So this is my experience of waking up. Okay. And the freedom that I experienced was freedom from myself, freedom from the bondage of self. And I started learning more and more about all this, and there is a lot to learn. And the more I learned, the more I realized there's a lot more to learn. And as it went, the more I realized, like, this never ends. It isn't like I've learned all this and now I've done it and I'm done. Like, this learning process continues. It never ends, like all my life. And depending on how much I apply myself to these different principles and things involving all this stuff, the more I apply myself, the more freedom I gain. The more all these things come to fruition. And so it's like, I got nothing to lose. I'm just gonna keep doing this. Fuck it. And now I'm playing in bands. I was never playing in bands before I quit drinking and using. Now I'm fucking playing in the fucking, some of the most badass, better. I mean, dude, these bands I'm playing in are fucking just really good bands. Fuck it. I'm sorry. I'm gonna toot my own horn. I played in fucking amazing bands. It would crush 80% of all this mainstream media, mainstream fucking music. Is fucking shit. We're just shredding it. We're just shredding it. We're fucking working circles around all these famous bands. Like, we put them to shame easily, no problem, all day. We write better music. We play better shows. We have better crowd responses. It's all good. Nothing but gravy. And so the more all these things started happening for me, the more interested I was in, what is all this 12-step stuff? What is it? And so I just continue to go deeper and deeper and dig and become more involved in all this. And it never ended. Like, so now it's 23 years, and that's like my main most important thing. And so then when I hear people talking about, you know, being red pilled and awake and all these things, all these like concepts online where people are talking about the red pill, you know, and they're talking about being awake and being aware of what's really going on behind, you know, and all this stuff. It's kind of like, yeah, okay, yeah, oh. So now it's this big trend, and everybody's talking about how awake everyone is, and people are so awake. Awake to what? You know, because once I quit drinking and using, and had really experienced it after a few years, where I really started to see what this is all about, I started to notice more and more how asleep your average person is, and that somehow, by no virtue of mine, nonetheless, somehow I'm like way more aware of things than your average person. And then I discovered that all this popular online talk about being awake and red pilled and the stay live sunglasses, and then all the gurus, all these gurus that everybody's looking to all over the internet and shit. And I was like, oh, really? Yeah. Oh, awake. Yeah. Because I've heard all this, you know, all my life, all these people, all my life, people talking about, you know, how awake they are and how awesome they are. And, you know, and what was funny though is when I got sober and stopped drinking and using and all this shit, I started listening more to these people that claim they're awake and how awesome they are, and I'm looking at and I'm like, these are all these sheeple that, you know. So this is just another thing. This is just one more thing where all these people want to talk about how awake they are and everything, and you look at them and it's like, dude, you keep on smoking them joints, bro. That'll really wake you up. Yeah, you're so awake, you know. And so in a way, it's just another thing to laugh at, you know. Like I would go, you know, I'll go into BitChute and all these places and all these and listen to all these people who talk about how awake they are, and I listen to what is it that they're saying, like what, and it's just all bullshit, you know. See, this is a thing that I learned. One of the things I learned during my abstinence, all these years of abstinence, 23 years, is that I was a really good bullshitter before I quit drinking and using, right? And I was such a good bullshitter. Well, really the only person I was good at bullshitting was myself. And I could tell myself those things all day of how awake I am and all this and that. But it wasn't until I actually did something, which, you know, this particular thing is quit drinking and using. Once I quit drinking and using, I really started to see what a bullshitter I've been all these years. You know, bullshitting myself that I'm so awake and I'm so aware, and so I started learning about myself and what a bullshitter I was to myself. You know, I was like the number one. I could bullshit myself into anything. Oh, how awesome I am, how awake I am, how. When in reality, that was all just bullshit. And so once I started to realize what a good bullshitter I had been all these years, then I started to be able to detect it easier because been there, done that. You know, I'm the number one bullshitter, right? And there's an old saying, and it's you hear it a lot in the rooms, is you can't bullshit a bullshitter. And the longer a person traverses this path that I've been on for 23 years, the more keen a sense of bullshit you are detecting bullshit, where it becomes a lot easier, and you know, it's like to the point where it's clear as day. All I've got to do is listen to somebody for about 30 seconds and I can tell whether or not they're a bullshitter and to what level of a bullshitter they actually are. And so you got all these people talking about how awake they are and how aware they are and how red-pilled they are. And dude, the amount of bullshit is such bullshit. And I just, most of it's just comedy, where I just sit and listen to all these people talk about how awake they are and how against the sheeple they are and all, and there's so much bullshit. Like, you got all these sheeple bragging about how awake they are and all that. It's like hilarious. It's just a big massive comedy. It's all a joke. So I don't know how much of this is positive, because I was going to try to do a positive video, and I don't know. I mean, I guess that's subjective to the individual, whether or not this is a positive video I'm doing, or if it's just negative, gossipy, and all this other stuff. But I may not be the most awake person in the world, but I'm not asleep either. I can guarantee you I'm not a sleeper. I'm not a trancer. And there's a lot of fucking sleepy motherfuckers all over online and everywhere else claiming how awake they are. And they are the sleepiest motherfuckers you'll ever see in your life. It's just a trend now to claim how awake I am, and how, you know, it's just the big trend, online trend. Yeah. Red pills and they live sunglasses, and it's all just such bullshit. There was a time where it wasn't bullshit. I remember that time. That was back in 2015, 2016. There was a lot of genuine discussion, but it has become it's become a total joke, or as many like to uh, term, the clown show. Like all this red pill, I'm awake, I'm red pilled, I'm wearing They Live sunglasses. It's all become just a big clown show. It's all just fake bullshit. Yeah. So again, I'm not the most awake motherfucker in the world, but dude, I'll just end it with this: you can't bullshit a bullshitter. Okay.